afternoon, everyone. My name is Josh Parkin, and I want to welcome everyone to the third meeting of the Food Assistance Collective. This meeting is a community initiative of helpNYC. I want to welcome everyone who is new to helpNYC and those who have joined us for the third time and the second time. We really appreciate you being here today. You've been to our last two meetings. I'm gonna spare the people who have been here before about the long intro. We're just gonna run right into it today and tell you a little bit about helpNYC. We're a peer-driven community initiative that believes that people are the experts in their own lives. We help people connect to organizations and resources that are low barrier, verified, and trusted. And our core values are human rights, lived experience, personal dignity, and a harm reduction approach to recovery. How we do it, we use our lived experience to guide our work. We build relationships with our partners. We keep our resources low barrier and easy to use, and we see the humanity in every situation that we're involved in. Our website is low barrier. It is designed to be viewable across all platforms and bandwidths. We encourage our partners to explore partnerships with unlikely partners that think outside the box, and we build capacity and steer away from the duplication of services and information. Some updates. So in the environment we're in, we want to make it clear that we stand with the Black Lives Matter movement, and that we hear, listen to, see, and welcome the experience of people of color into our work. We believe everyone is equal and everyone is entitled to justice. And we made a statement back on June 2nd to reiterate this fact of the work we do. And also I want to shout out and wish everyone of the LGBTQ community a happy Pride. We unceremoniously, because we didn't have time to have a huge email go out about our logo, but we have used the Gilbert Baker colors of the Pride flag, and we have included people of color in our logo this year, and I'm really proud to stand with both of those communities. So let's get to the numbers. So we have over 170 food assistance partners, listing partners that we have relationships with. 22 new partners since the onset of COVID-19, and we have 21 new partners coming on board in the next couple of weeks. I just haven't been able to onboard them because of the additional work that me and Charlotte have been doing lately. To become a listing partner, you're identified some way, whether we outreach you or you outreach us or someone suggests you on our website, and then we verify you. And verification for us is not calling, confirming your program hours and what insurance you take if you're a medical or service provider. If you're a food assistance provider, it's not about figuring out finding out what hours you're open, what days. We actually want to build a relationship with you. We want to know, we want to ensure that you're low barrier and people can come to you to get services and access to food. Ooh, let me go back. And then we list you. Yes, our listings are limited, but that is because of our verification process. We want to ensure that our listings are correct, and when a person accesses our website for help, they're getting the correct information, or if a direct service provider like a social worker or a housing specialist or someone that's working with them doesn't have to spend hours. Some of the direct service providers in here may relate to that. And we're very open to correcting our information if we are publishing the wrong information. The biggest thing that has taken up a lot of my time over the last couple of weeks is that Mayor de Blasio and Speaker Johnson announced $25 million being made available to help people in need get the food they need through the services. Sorry, a little distracted by the chat here. We've been with the help of the Comptroller's Office, been advocating for smaller programs to have access to this money that may not have memberships into larger organizations or need more information about it. So we sent over a list last week of 91 that we are advocating for, and I'm really happy to be partnering with the Comptroller's Office. Our website has seen an 87% increase in traffic since the New York pause order went into effect on March 22nd. Since March 22nd, we have also seen over 2,600 new unique users, which humbles me and just certifies that the work we do here at helpNYC is much needed. And I'm really grateful for your support in our work. And one of the ways that we have seen that increased traffic, and those who were at the last meeting have seen this exact slide, is that the two images on the left, the white ones, are the food assistance flyers that we have available on our website, and I can also email them to you. They're easily reproducible, and some programs have used the smaller one and put it in their bags as they're distributing, because our thought is that programs are being overwhelmed, but if we spread the demand across the network of food assistance programs in the city, we can help the programs and we can help the people in need. And the ones on the right, the red ones, are the social media posts. And that brings us to social media. Let's be real here today. Some of you are going to be on your phones during this meeting, listening, and you're going to be on social media. So while you're on social media, just stop by Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and follow us. We would love to get social with you. And what we are here for today, the Food Assistance Collective of New York. This was founded, the FAC-NY was founded as a direct response to listing partners that were contacting us and needing similar information, but each situation was unique. The collective allows programs and the people who run them to have conversations and work together mutually, help those in need without connection to a government agency or funder. So our roundtable discussion later on today is a place for you to be frank. You don't have to impress anyone. If you're struggling or if you need help or if you have any ideas, we want to hear about that. We want to connect you guys. And Charlotte will reiterate this later, that if you walk away with one more connection that can help you do the work, we're so grateful that we could help you do that. And we want you guys to be sharing your experience, knowledge, and opportunities with each other. And today, we have 4 great panelists, and I'm really excited to hear their experience and their knowledge. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to my colleague who came on to helpNYC almost 6, 8, 9 months ago. The time has flown, and I'm really grateful she's doing this work alongside me. So without further ado, please welcome board member Charlotte Masters.
Hey, everybody. I am very excited to be here, but I'm also so excited because we're seeing so many familiar faces, but also so many new faces in attendance today, and who RSVP'd for this event. As Josh touched upon, for those who have participated in our discussions before, you know that the objective isn't necessarily to walk away with all the answers to all of your questions, but to have hopefully some new information, a new contact, and a bit of extra hope with the knowledge that despite the size of your organization, you're not alone and you're not forgotten in everything that's going on in New York City. We also really want to stress that while I'm sure we can all relate to how intimidating New York City can be, and so I'm very excited today that we have a panel filled with people who are really the experts on the work that they're doing, the work surrounding food supply in New York City, and hopefully this helps put some names or faces to names and can close a gap in communication and contacts that will go past COVID-19 and anything else that 2020 has to throw at us. So I really don't want to jinx it because it seems to be a very creative year. So without further ado, I'd love to jump into our panelist discussion. Panelists, when I introduce you, if you could include a bit about your organization, what your COVID-19 response has been, and or what your normal operations have been, and then what your COVID response has been, that would be awesome, just to give everyone kind of a background of what you do. So to start us off, I'd love to introduce Josh Morden, who is the Procurement and Logistics Manager of City Harvest. Josh, if you could take it away.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see some friendly faces on here. As Charlotte mentioned, I work for City Harvest. On our supply chain team, I do procurement and logistics for City Harvest. That means I work on the team that essentially sources all of the food that comes through City Harvest's warehouse. As part of our disaster response, I'm currently working as our disaster operations specialist, kind of managing a lot of our outbound distribution and disaster efforts. A little bit about City Harvest here is that it's the largest food rescue organization in New York City. We rescue food that would otherwise go to waste, and we redistribute it to our network of about 400 soup kitchens, food pantries, community food programs across the 5 boroughs. Before COVID-19 hit, our fleet of 22 trucks was out on the road every day doing this work, running our 9 mobile markets. We distributed free fresh produce to communities all over the city, and we provided some nutrition education courses at a variety of supermarkets, schools, and community centers. And then obviously once the crisis hit, we had to scale up our operations massively to meet the overwhelming need that we were seeing throughout the 5 boroughs. To give a little bit of perspective to that, on a weekly basis, last year, we were sending out about 700 to 800,000 pounds of food a week. And now we're averaging about 1.8 million pounds of food going out per week. And that's just through our warehouse. That's not even factoring our local operation. So just from last year, we also, because we wanted to be able to help our programs run safe, socially distanced programs, we started a repacking program within our facility. So we have 10 to 20 repackers come in every day and repack product that we have sourced so that we can send it out to our programs so they can run socially distanced programs. We're not only considering our immediate response, which is obviously sourcing more food for the long term, for the short term, which is right now we've doubled our operations, but we're thinking about how we're going to continue and to confront this crisis based upon the assumption that there are going to be a lot of economic ramifications that are going to far outlast the current situation that we're dealing with and seeing.
Thank you so much, Josh. We also have in attendance with us today, Taylor Stevens, who is the Director of Community at Rethink Food.
Hi everyone, so nice to be with you. So yeah, I'm Taylor. I'm the Director of Community at Rethink Food. And to kind of give an overview of what Rethink was doing before COVID hit, we were utilizing excess food that we were rescuing from all over the city, various restaurants, grocery stores, corporate dining facilities, hotels, urban farms. We were taking that into our commissary kitchen in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, where we were then had a team of chefs who would take that food and make it into delicious meals that we then sent out to our community partners. And at that point, we had about 13 different partners that we were working with. As the city started shutting down, as you might all imagine, as the restaurants shut down, we saw all of those donations that we were getting. First, there was a huge influx. On our normal weeks, we would pick up about 8,000 pounds, would be a huge week for us. And then the last week of March, we picked up almost 35,000 pounds of food. So we saw a huge influx. And then after that, once the restaurants and hotels started shutting down, those donations dried up. So we saw all of that happen. And we knew, because a lot of our team comes from the restaurant world. So our hearts are both in feeding folks, but also in supporting restaurants. So we really pivoted what we were doing to be able to assist restaurants and also assist the community in the same way we were doing before. So we started our restaurant response program, which is us funding, basically sending out grants to restaurants to keep them afloat. So instead of having to rely on people ordering seamless or going in for pickup, delivery, all of that, we're giving them money and asking them to make a certain amount of meals for us that are individually packaged that then we are matching with community organizations. So that has been the biggest way that we've pivoted, and that's allowed us to really increase our output. And we also knew we had a commissary kitchen, but keeping all of the meal production in one centralized place was not going to be the smartest as the virus spread and concerns about having it all come from one place. If we had to shut down, people wouldn't get meals. So we've outsourced those meals. And now, before the crisis, we were sending out about 8,000 meals a week. Now we're hitting 60,000 or more than that each week, which we're really excited about. And as we look to the future, of course, restaurants are starting to open, which is really exciting for them. And we're so happy about that. We want to figure out a way that we can translate this program, the restaurant response program, into a post-COVID world. So how can we make this sustainable? Because we know restaurants are going to be around forever, and we want to utilize whatever capacity they have to support them and have them support the community. So that's how we're looking to the future.
Awesome. We also have with us Nick Buse, who is the Associate Director of Mobilization and Policy with Food Bank for New York City. Nick, if you could take it away.
Hi, everyone. Nick here. It's nice to see some faces. Hi, Catherine. So Food Bank for New York City, like City Harvest, is a membership organization. And before COVID-19 hit, we were working with about 800 programs that were distributing food at food pantries and soup kitchens, really in every corner of the 5 boroughs. We also work with a handful of school sites for different types of programming, from school-based pantries to nutrition education. And we also do a lot of coordination and training and capacity building and outreach for other nutrition assistance programs, SNAP or the Federal Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program being key. So for those of you that work with Food Bank for New York City, you already know some of these things. But I think that it's important for us to say that for people who are new to this work or kind of re-experiencing this work in new ways because of the COVID outbreak, hunger was a massive problem in New York City before this, and it's only growing. So we did a survey of our network. I'll throw it into the chat right now, actually, that indicated that 75% of programs that we work with are serving more people today than they were in the months leading up to the pandemic outbreak. And when we zoom out and we look at citywide, sort of what that looks like, we distributed 21 million meals to our emergency food partners across the 5 boroughs since the start of the pandemic. It's about a 20% increase in food distribution compared to last year. So there's a lot more information about sort of what the network is reporting in terms of who are first-time visitors. I think this is also another really important thing to note for different types of agencies that are navigating service to clients who maybe were already familiar with their program. There's a huge influx of new people visiting programs. And for those of you that are running programs, you are experiencing this, I'm sure. So in terms of how we've pivoted, like Josh was saying, we also kind of wanted to ensure as much continued service as possible. Many programs are operated by volunteers. Many programs are operated by volunteers who are senior citizens. So in the first weeks, or really months of the pandemic outbreak, we did see some immediate pauses in distribution. I think that's also really significant to keep in mind, because that meant there were more people now going to fewer programs. So that meant that programs that had the capacity to distribute were now distributing at a much, much higher level. and really stepped up. So there's a network of community response partners that we tapped into, and these are larger agencies often that were able to increase their distribution in various ways, through expanding the number of days through for distribution, or the frequency, the hours, even innovative. Some programs are able to offer drive-through. I know it's a little surprising in New York City, but nationally, if you look at sort of some of the pivots that emergency food providers had to make, you could see similar things, especially in places where people who come to emergency food also rely on vehicles for transportation. So you're seeing that across the city, or across the country, excuse me. So, I think today many programs are reopening, and they're reopening kind of with that cautious and very intentional, socially distanced and safety minded distribution. So I think looking forward, we need to continue to fortify emergency food providers and social service agencies, even in the face of things like city and state budget shortfalls. So we can talk about sort of advocacy more in depth, but I think it's important for us, regardless of where we fall in our direct service, or even if we're just a concerned community member, is to keep in mind that continuing to advocate for additional resources to support the long-term recovery for New York City is going to be essential. City, state, and federal partners have stepped up very quickly to provide initial relief, but we know that long-term recovery is going to be necessary. This is not a sprint, it's going to be a marathon. So as we talk about sort of what that looks like, we can talk about what the other advocacy priorities there are. I'm going to throw another link into the chat, which is from a policy coalition group that has pretty clearly articulated some top line city, state, and federal priorities, understanding that these things are kind of evolving and changing. So we can talk a little bit more about that in the discussion, but I'll stop there. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And finally, last but not least, we also have with us today Quinn Caruthers, who is the nonprofit strategy manager at the Office of the New York City Food Czar. Quinn, if you can tell us a bit about what the New York City Food Czar is and what your operations look like before and what your COVID-19 response has been.
Yeah, so the Food Czar team is kind of a compilation of folks who are experts in their field. We've got a bunch of people from sustainability, DOT, emergency management, and sanitation. Of course, the city's Food Czar is Catherine Garcia, the commissioner of the Department of Sanitation. And so we've got a team that are focusing on two separate work streams. One is the food supply chain, and that would be things like Hunt's Market and the transportation numbers that we see of large trucks coming into New York, and how that is adjusting to what was a very large dip after we closed restaurants. A lot of the supply then shifted into consumer products. There were obviously, we all experienced grocery store issues and shortages and panic buying. And those have basically leveled out now. Hunts Point Market is operating at about 65% of its capacity. I'd say that the trucks that are coming into New York are, the numbers are about 15 to 20% down from what they were pre-COVID. And we see some things that are, there's an increase in grocery store prices, almost a historic increase that we haven't seen in 40 years or so. And the consumer habits are changing. We see either a distrust or other issue with meat. Meat consumption is down. Plant-based protein consumption is almost doubled. So it's just sort of it's interesting to see how it's going to work, and then how we can sort of guide it through the phase 2 reopening, which is going to be on Monday. And the Department of Transportation, the mayor's office, put out guidance now on what outdoor seating will look like, and some of the resources that folks can have for that. The second work stream is feeding the city's most vulnerable. That is the team that I'm on. And I particularly focus on nonprofit partnerships and NYCHA. For our senior buildings at NYCHA, we're aiming to bulk drop food in partnership with either on-the-ground nonprofits or seasonal NYCHA staff to distribute those meals to the doors, and getting those folks off of the sort of the get food meal, home delivered meal program that is operating at about 1 million meals a day that we're delivering through that system. Food goes to a number of hubs that we have. Taxi drivers log into an app and they can sign up for a shift where they will pick up boxes and deliver them to the doors. And another element that we have is the DOE grab and go sites. So that's 4 meals for anybody who wants to show up to a DOE site. I think we're at something like 530 sites right now. And each are doing about 1,000 meals a day. So about 250,000 to 300,000 meals on the grab and go. And then this last 2 weeks, we have sort of seen a leveling out of the numbers. They haven't been increasing as much as they were the weeks before. And we think that we have gotten to a point now where we can understand what the scale of it is going to be long-term, and then sort of adjust for things like getting healthier food into the system, getting more culturally relevant food into the system. And we put out an RFI, which is a precursor to an RFP, requesting information from nonprofits who had the capacity to put meals into our system. And our idea is to create a zone model where local restaurants are delivering locally, within their neighborhoods, to the folks who have signed up for the Get Food program. So that's just a bit of an overview of what the Food Czar team is doing, and kind of where we want to go in the future.
Thank you so much, Quinn. And again, thank you all for being here. So with that kind of background information in mind, and I know you guys touched upon it a bit, I'd love if you could discuss a little bit more what this next phase might look like for operations and your work. So if Taylor, if you could start us off with what's kind of going to change at Rethink. I know you guys were kind of planning a bit of a shift, so.
Yeah, definitely. So at Rethink, as I mentioned earlier, in response to COVID, we started the restaurant response program, and a lot of the restaurants that are currently in that program have been making 500 to 1,000 meals. We know that's not realistic as restaurants can start to open because they need to make revenue in other ways. So we are in the process of creating a Rethink certified program where restaurants would continue to be involved and be making meals that go to their local community. We're identifying those needs, but we're hoping to be onboarding more restaurants with less meals, so we can still meet the need, but instead of having a huge ask for those restaurants, we're figuring out what is realistic for them to make in addition to the meals that they're serving to the general public, and so we can build those beautiful connections between restaurants and local communities who are in need. So that's where our minds are going to the future, but we'll continue to be doing the work that we're doing. You know, we're here to continue to support the organizations that we're supporting now and grow that network of organizations.
That's awesome, thanks. And Josh, if you could shed a little bit of light on your next phase with City.
Yeah, sure. So we recognize that our agency network is going to be experiencing this for the long haul. We know the effects of COVID-19 will be with us for the next year, if not longer. So what we have essentially done and what we're planning for is this past fiscal year, which is usually July to June, we were going to rescue 64 million. Now we're going to rescue by the end of this month, 81 million for this fiscal term total. And we're projecting that for our next fiscal term, we'll be rescuing anywhere between 89 million and 96 million pounds of food. So we're scaling up quite a bit more. As I mentioned before, we established a repacking program, this is going to benefit our agency network on two fronts. With the crisis, a lot of our agencies have seen a reduction in the volunteers that are showing up to their programs, which means they have less people to operate at these programs and less people to glean product and or pack product on site. So not only have we cut out a lot of the gleaning process for them, we've cut out any waste that they would potentially have to have hauled away. And we've also made it safer for them to run their programs. As part of our increased food that we're going to be bringing in, we've drastically increased the amount of shelf-stable food that we're sourcing and purchasing for our programs. And in terms of distributions, because our agencies have seen such a large uptick in client attendance, we're also trying to make larger deliveries to them closer to their window of service. One of the past barriers that we found with delivering large quantities of food to agencies is that they didn't have the capacity to store it for very long. So when we would typically make deliveries, we would do it like a day or 2 days before their distributions. And now because they have such an increase in clients, we can't really drop the amount of food that they need a day or 2 days before. So we're delivering a couple hours before their distribution in a much larger quantity.
Okay, great, thank you so much for that information. Nick, I'd love to turn to you as well. In your next phase with operations at Food Bank for New York, is there anything in particular your partners should expect to change? Or
I mean, I think in many ways our partners are adapting, you know, on the fly, and in a way that makes most sense for their service and their community. I think a couple of things. Josh is talking about sort of like the need for food, the volume of food, and you know, I certainly think that that's the case. But the other side of that coin, of course, is the capacity to distribute that food, and really what that means is supporting things like infrastructure, so refrigeration and storage space. What that means is stipends for staff and for volunteers. What that means is like operational expense to keep the refrigerators running and the lights on. And those are some of the hardest dollars for community-based organizations to raise. And I think that it's really important that we collectively continue to advocate for those types of flexible resources that allow us to meet community needs. Because having food is one side, it's important, it's essential, it's inextricable, obviously. But having the capacity to distribute it at agencies that have the expertise and the community connection and who are doing this work is really, really important. So I think looking towards that is going to be key. I think we also want to not lose sight of just the overwhelming significance of other nutrition assistance programs, including, you know, most importantly, SNAP. And I think that collectively across the country, we have movement and the opportunity to continue to push for advancements in this program, which really right now maybe provide $1.50 for a meal in a city where a grocery store bought meal still costs $4. You know, so we're talking about really an insufficient amount of resources for groceries, which is often why people both rely on SNAP and emergency food. So looking ahead, I think that continuing to advocate for those nutritional assistance programs are going to be key in the coming months.
And jumping off that, speaking of advocacy, Quinn, I know you also mentioned kind of the future and looking at that as well. So for the Office of the Food Czar, what is going to happen to it in the coming months? And like, how long will it be around? Is it always going to be a resource for people looking for a way to get involved in the macro level of things? Yeah,
it's hard to say because we have to plan for a lot of different possibilities of what the future is going to look like. Obviously, there is a tranche of us in the Food Czar's office who are focused on senior feeding. We know that that is an ongoing thing and something that the city provided resources for. And we know that as good as anything can get, it's still likely that we will be getting guidance from the health officials that seniors should remain homebound. So it's planning on, you know, either how to decentralize it and empower the senior centers once again, to give out meals in some way that's safe. I don't think that this office will last forever. I think that we're looking for where it would make most sense to be housed within an existing agency. And I think it gets to that point when we are basically serving with nutrition assistance the same population that we were pre-COVID. And I don't know that that gets back to the same number. I think we determined that the food insecure number in New York City was at like 1 to 1.1 million. And so, you know, based on the economy and the reopening phasing and the possibility of a second bump, it's to say who's going to be financially empowered enough to get back to the level of food security that they were at. That may take years. So we're really focusing now more on individual financial empowerment, figuring out how to offer maybe if not even free meals, but subsidized meals, and then getting folks back to buying their groceries that they like and the food that they like and cooking it and providing it in a dignified way in their homes. So that we're working with EDC, doing a lot of stuff with the legislative affairs folks on our teams to see how we can advocate. The advocating at the federal government level is difficult. It's hard. The USDA doesn't act very quickly. Stimulus 4 package is kind of up in the air. We're not sure what will be included for children nutrition, senior nutrition, and then we're always advocating for an increase in SNAP benefits and the ability to use your SNAP and EBT money online. There's just weird quirks in the system. You can order groceries online at certain retailers with your SNAP benefits, but it can't be paid for the delivery cost. And so sometimes that delivery cost is even cost prohibitive to people. And it's just this, and those websites are not catering to the people in most need. They're catering to people who have the means to be purchasing the food anyway. So hopefully some public-private partnerships where we can get some of those things solved as well.
Fingers crossed to that. And now the next question I'd like to direct specifically to Josh, Taylor, and Nick. I know, as you guys mentioned, that as you get more influx, you're working to support your current partners in the best way you can. So while you're not accepting new partners right now, sorry, I need to look at my question really quick. But while you're not accepting new partners right now, is there a way, or what's the right way for people to reach out if they're interested in becoming a partner in the future or down the line when you are opening your doors and able to accept new partners again? Josh, if you could.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, right now it's really difficult to bring on new partners. I can't speak for anybody else, but definitely for City Harvest, because the need has increased dramatically across our entire network, and we're just trying to meet that current demand, and agencies are still asking for more product there. Initially, what we did at the beginning of this crisis, because 30 to 40% of our network reduced services or closed, what we did have to do to continue meeting community need was bring on 28 emergency food distribution sites, which were community partners that had reached out to City Harvest through our website. And they've been brought on and they've been moving quite a bit of food for us, as a good chunk of our network still remains closed. Another thing that I forgot to mention a little bit earlier is that we're working on getting PPE, that we have been filling supply requests for our current agencies as they need that, and we've been sending that to them with the food. One thing that I would say is we're evaluating our capacity weekly, and we're regularly adjusting where we deliver food and the amount of food that we can move, and the amount of food that we have access to is regularly changing. So if anybody is looking to work with City Harvest, like I said, it's on a case-by-case basis. Things change every single day, but I would go over to cityharvest.org and you can see all the necessary contacts on our website that you can start reaching out to at least express interest in becoming a partner.
Awesome. And if you could possibly just put that in the chat as well, just so when we're going through the minutes, we can include all that.
Okay, absolutely.
If you could shed some light on what future partnerships look like with Rethink.
Sure. So right now, yes, we are fulfilling all the needs of the community partners that we currently have. But as I mentioned, we are looking to grow this sustainable program of matching restaurants and their individually packaged meals with community organizations. So I will drop a link into the chat after this, where folks who are interested in receiving meals for their community can fill out that form. It goes into our system. We're streamlining all of our requests there, so that once we do start getting this program up and running and have the capacity to onboard new community partners and restaurants, if you filled out that form, you're already in our system, and we will look at your application. So I will put that in the chat, and feel free, if you are a community organization on this, fill it out. Also feel free to share it with any other organizations that you think might benefit from getting meals.
Great, thank you, Taylor and Nick.
Yeah, so similarly right now, we're not able to onboard new members. So our focus is on existing members. And I want to be kind of specific about this, about the importance of what membership means or what the implications are. And that part of that is about ensuring that there's safe food service and equitable food service to community members. So it is our obligation to ensure that that is the food distribution that's happening, and that requires, you know, training, and it requires, you know, site visits, and it requires, you know, inspections and things like that, which is all as it should be. So being a member is not just being on a list. It's a specific process that organizations follow for membership. I think, like Josh noted, you know, it's an evaluation that's ongoing in terms of when we're going to be able to send people back out in the field for those types of things. In terms of where we are looking to fortify, you know, community networks and holes that are in the city in terms of food distribution. I think for organizations that are not already part of a existing food distribution network, I would, you know, I also note that every program I think that we work with relies on multiple sources of food. So that means food from Food Bank for New York City, from City Harvest. It often means purchasing food based on private donation or private, you know, fundraising or local donations. So it's a multifaceted project to try to fill shelves at food pantries across the city. So it's not a single source of food that is going to sustain a program. And that's important for us when we think about sort of what advocacy looks like and what the need looks like as we go forward. And then the last thing that I'll note in terms of, you know, seeking what partnership looks like, I know there's lots of different types of organizations that may be represented on the call today, is to look at some of the resources that do indicate which programs exist in your community and talk with them and find out what the partnership looks like and what their needs are. So we have a food program locator. The city's Get Food site has a food program locator. There's a few different resources that'll help you kind of make those connections. So because there may be opportunities for partnership that don't, you know, that can be operationalized sort of locally in the short term.
Okay, great. And just jumping off that as well, for your current partners, you know, obviously, I think we all understand here that specifically working with members and partners, it's best to be done as like a one-on-one type of game as we figure out the logistics during this trying time and then onward. For current partners that might be experiencing trouble or need technical assistance or any aid and might not feel that they have a direct contact with your organizations, do you guys have any recommendations of how they can reach out? If there's a specific contact working on that, or like it's through the website is the best way. Taylor, if you could start.
Sure. If you're a current partner of Rethink, then hello, nice to have you here. You can reach out to me directly through my email, which I can drop in the chat. I'm always open to talking through any issues, and I'm just here to be a support to our community partners.
Awesome. And Josh?
Sorry, I was on mute. So we have a specific team designated for that, our agency operations team. I can drop their contact information into the chat. Also, for anybody on here who's not a City Harvest partner or who might be looking to partner with one of our organizations and maybe get food from them where we're dropping it, there are some agencies where we're doing large drops and they're partnering with other organizations to then get food to them. I can drop in a map to something that we're calling our food locator, and people can follow that and kind of get some more information there.
Great. And Nick, if there's somewhere specifically they can reach out.
Yeah, it's our member. And if you're an existing member, you'll have a member engagement coordinator that you can talk to. You can call our member hotline as well, and usually manned by Claudia, and she'll point you in the right direction. For folks who are kind of new and kind of learning about this work, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to kind of chat with people and share kind of what the status is. And I'll just throw my email in the chat box too.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask.
I'm sorry, Marielle, we're about to open the open discussion, just a couple more questions just within the panel discussion. We'll touch upon that in a second. But Quinn, this is actually a question for you. You might not have the answer to it, but speaking on the more of the macro level of things a little bit, I guess it's kind of all over the place, but for organizations that have lost or might lose in the coming months their private food distributor that they regularly worked with, is there a professional organization or somewhere that they can reach out to find a new private food distributor or to work on a new partnership on that end of things?
That's not, I don't know the answer to that. I think there might be some assistance through the small business services. We were sharing resources, and so I wanted to share, there's 2 programs that are up and running right now that you can sign up for. The more people that sign up for it, the more efficient that it'll be. But pre-COVID, we had something called Donate-NYC. So Donate-NYC was for restaurants that, or food producers that had excess, and it would match them to organizations that were in need of those products. On a larger scale, we have started what we call Food Supply Match, and that is where food producers, farms, things like that, can tell the city what they have as excess and can match that to, if you sign up as a food pantry or food bank in that system with those needs, we can match you to them for a reduced cost purchasing. So I'll put both of those links into the chat, but those are 2 resources that we have ongoing. And then if you'd like to join our, we now do bi-weekly briefings. If you just want to email me, I can add you to that distribution list, and you'll get an update from the FoodStar team bi-weekly. And if you're an organization that has ongoing client interactions, you do some sort of case management, and a large population that you work with are food insecure and are possibly already getting home delivered meals through us, I can evaluate the organization and nominate them to become an authorized enroller. And then you would then be case managing your clients into and within the Get Food program.
Fabulous, thank you so much. Before we switch over into the open discussion, my last question to all of you is basically everyone had to act very quick on their feet during COVID-19. Now that the dust has settled a little bit, I just want to give you each an opportunity to share something that you are proud of, be it personally or within your team, that you're able to look at in retrospect and kind of give yourself a pat on the back for. So Nick, if you'd like to discuss something.
Oh gosh, I mean, I would give a big hug to every community-based organization, whether they were serving or whether they had to pause service. I mean, this work doesn't happen unless community-based organizations are serving. So I do want to say very briefly, it's about pandemic EBT. I don't think we've talked about it on this call much, but I think it's really important for us to know. This is like a grocery store benefit that every New York City family with students that qualify for the National Free School Lunch Program, but that's everybody who has kids in public school basically, should be expecting about $420 of grocery benefits. And these are use it or lose it benefits. And everybody who has kids who's getting free school lunch, and since we have universal free school lunch, that's everybody, is going to be getting it. There's different sort of groups of people, but it's important that people spend those dollars on groceries for everybody, regardless of their financial situation. So as much as we connect with community members, we want to make sure that there's not confusion about what those benefits are. For people who get SNAP benefits, we want to make sure that they don't understand that as a overpayment or anything like that. These are additional dollars for community members to use on food for, I think, about a year. So we want to make sure that folks are connected to that. There's a variety of resources. I can actually throw those in the chat too. And if folks have questions, let me know.
Awesome. And Quinn, if you could share a success.
Success. I mean, we've delivered 70 million meals in the last 13 weeks. Daily, we are procuring more food than the Pentagon. So it is a monumental task. The leadership of Catherine Garcia is amazing. And it's really cool to think that we're delivering 1.5 million meals to New Yorkers when the municipal government had never delivered a meal to a door 13 weeks ago. So I think every day it's just super cool to be on this team, and it's probably some of the best work that I've done in the mayor's office.
That's amazing. Josh, if you could.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time with my mute button, I guess. I would just say that I'm proud of City Harvest Emergency Food Network as a whole. We all pivoted very, very quickly to address this issue, both the funders and the emergency food providers on the ground. I mean, City Harvest, I know Food Bank has vastly increased its operations. City Harvest has increased our operations, and most importantly, all of our pantries have increased their operations with limited staff, limited resources, both in terms of food and other resources that they need to be able to do this safely. So it's been a very large adjustment. And there was very little pause in there. Everybody was able to ramp up very quickly and make sure that people can have access to this food.
It's definitely a time to be proud to be in New York. I think you guys are all doing such incredible work. Taylor, if you can share something that you're most proud of.
Sure. I would say one thing that I've realized throughout this time is that absolutely anything is possible. And, I'm sure a lot of people on this call I have worked with or Rethink has worked with in some way. We've created so many amazing partnerships. I just know all of the community organizations, larger organizations are supporting each other in this way that I just feel has never been done before. And it's really amazing what we've all been able to accomplish together. I would say for Rethink specifically, as Nick said, if I could give everyone a huge hug on my team, I would. We are a team of less than, I think, 20 people before all of this. And we went from sending out 8,000 meals on our kind of biggest weeks to over 60,000 a week in a matter of months. So the growth has been enormous, and everyone on the Rethink team has just really stepped up, and everyone on every team on this call, I'm sure, sees this in their own colleagues, but we are all just capable of things that I don't think any of us ever thought we could do. So just everyone should give themselves a pat on the back. We are really working together through this, and I think all these partnerships that we've all made will continue far beyond COVID when this is just a distant memory. So it's just a really beautiful community that we're all building or continuing to build.
Yeah, you guys are all awesome. And with all of the work you guys have taken on, in addition to what your normal schedules look like, it's even more exceptional that you guys were able to take the time to be with us today. So again, thank you. Before we open our open discussion, everyone, a few notes on the open discussion. We will stop recording, so people feel free to talk freely. If you can utilize the raise hand feature on Zoom, then Josh or I will call on you to allow you to ask a question. If you